Hello again, and this video is a continuation of our spreadsheet intro, which is part of our challenge activity for our first unit on patterns, or you can do this at any point throughout the year. We already talked about fill down in a previous video. Look for that and watch that. We're now going to change the sheet that we're looking at, and instead of being on fill down down here, we're going to click on equations part 1. So I talked before about how each of these boxes is essentially a calculator. We're now going to harness that power for this one. So for this sheet, what we're looking at is using this data over here on the left-hand side and having it equal or manipulating that data. So here's what I mean by that. So for example, right here in this cell, I can type equals, and then I can move my cursor and click on this cell. Now notice the cell reference, it says A5. That's because this is column A and row 5. And so it's going to equal that cell. And if I hit enter, then it says equal. Now I can do the same, equals, and then click on this cell over here and then hit enter, and we can say it equals that cell. Now instead of having to repeat this, I'm going to go ahead and use my fill down skill to fill down. We can see all of these cells equal the cell to the left. So it learns that pattern of, oh, you just want to equal the cell to the left. Now you might be like, well, that's nice, Mr. Canning, but I could have just copied and pasted. Well, the difference here is that, for example, if I had collected this data and I was like, oh, shoot, this should have been 20 instead of 2, it automatically updates over here. So if you've been doing some calculations or averaging, etc., then updating your raw data will actually update everything everywhere else. And so you can see how that becomes very powerful very quickly. This is called cell referencing, and we're using cell references to do basic calculations. So this first one was equal to the data. This next one we're going to say equals and then 5 and the little asterisk symbol, so times, and then I'll click on my data. And so it will just equal 5 times that data. And so again, we can see that if I update this to 20 instead of 2, that it also updates this to 200, so it quickly updates. Now, for the rest of these, you're just going to follow what it says. So you're skipping the Y part, you're just typing equals, the number, so 5, and then we said times, I'm going to say the data, and then I put an asterisk and say squared. Fill that down, and we can see that it fills down that same pattern, but just with each new cell. Same thing here, equals 5, and then I'm going to say divided by, so slash, and then I'm going to click on the data, and again, we can fill down and see what that equals. Here, we're going to follow an inverse square pattern, so I'm going to say equals 5 divided by, I'm going to click on the data, and I'm going to square the data, so that's now in the denominator. Alternatively, you could have just said to the -2 power without the division. Fill down, and we can see what that equals. Now, if you remember the quick cheat from last time, or the shortcut, I'm going to quickly undo this. But you can actually fill in multiple things at the same time. So if I went ahead and said 5 times and then my data, I'm going to do that one. I'll do this one, equals 5 times my data, and then I square it. And then for this one, I'm going to say equals, and then 5 divided by my data. And then for this one, I'm going to say equals 5 divided by, and then I'm going to click on my data, and I'm going to square it. So now that I've filled in the first row for all of those, I can actually fill down all of them at the same time. Now for part 2, so I'm going to click on this equations part 2 down at the bottom. We're going to do the same thing, but go ahead and instead of referencing just one set of data, reference both. So for example, this one's going to be equals, and then I'll say A plus, and then the B column data. And this one will equal the A column data minus the B column data, etc. So go ahead and take a moment to fill that in, see if you can do that on your own. I'm going to kind of continue to do it myself. Two to the A power. Okay. Oh, 2 to the, I shouldn't have said A, I should have clicked on that A. Great. All right, now that I've filled down the top ones, or filled in the top ones, I'm just going to fill down, and it fills down for everything. That's it for this equations one. Look for the next video on fixed cell referencing. And that's all.